Hello and welcome back to Virtual Career Expo Business Edition events 2020. So today is day one. So far we've seen a very interesting panel discussion on whether or not millennials and Gen Z are really kind of forced to reckon with in the coming decade. So thank you to our panelists and of course our moderator. Moving on next, we have something very interesting. But before that, you're watching this, don't forget to drop your resume at the virtual booth and of course take that opportunity to chat with them. Just make sure you see there is a button next to the company name. If it's green, means they are there. They can answer your questions. If it's grey, means they've taken a short break, but they'll be back soon. So do not go anywhere. Make sure you are logged in www.virtualcareerexpo.my. So log in, then you can drop your resume. All the best, good luck, and stay tuned because today is only day one. We have more interesting programs coming up. Up next, we have CEO Insight. It is fireside chat with someone who has started actually quite low. From where? From the kitchen. He started off as a chef and worked his way all the way up to being a CEO, and that took decades. But let's learn from his experience. And to moderate this fireside chat, we have none other than the Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Wilson Teo from Pink Labels Conferences and Events. And joining him virtually, we have Mr. Subash Basrur, the General Manager of Courtyard by Marriott Penang. Over to you, Wilson.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining us for this fireside chat where we look into the journey and share experiences with leaders in the industry. We have joining us today Mr. Subash, the General Manager of Courtyard by Marriott Penang. He has under his belt over 30 years of experience in the industry. This is going to be a very insightful session, so let's get started. Mr. Subash, how are you adjusting with life here in Penang?
It's amazing. I mean, I've been to Penang a few times on holidays, and I decided to make Penang my home. So adjusting to life in Penang is like slipping into an old pair of shoes, I guess. It's quite comfortable.
That's great to hear. So, Mr. Subash, you've taken a rather interesting route in your journey to being part of the leadership today. So, I've heard that you started as a chef in Mumbai, working in several culinary positions throughout the 90s. So, how did you get here? Can you share with us a little bit of your journey on how you get here?
Certainly. It is everyone's childhood dream to have some kind of a career in mind. My dream was to be a doctor, and that did not eventuate. So I joined the hospitality by joining the school in Mumbai, which is for hospitality management, and I did my degree in hospitality management. And the Taj Mahal Hotel in India approached me and asked me to join them back in the 70s. I joined them as a trainee chef. And when I joined as a trainee chef, I had a British chef who said to me, Sebastian, whatever you do the best and try to be the best in what you do. So my first sort of goal was to be the best chef that I could be when I was a trainee. And I was able to achieve these sort of different goals that I had put in my life. My first goal was to be a chef that was one of the best in what I did, and that was classical French cuisine. So the company, being working for a good company, Taj Mahal Hotel was one of the 10 best hotels in the world at that time. It's a very famous hotel, over 150 years old. And I was fortunate enough to join that hotel and work my way to the top and became a chef. And they sent me overseas to many places for training. I worked with one of the world's best chefs, Paul Bocuse, who was the father of Nouvelle Cuisine. I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park in New York to study cuisine at its highest level. And along the way, it sort of gave me something along the way, is that if you set your mind to do something and you set yourself a target and a goal, hard work and attitude and passion definitely makes you achieve where you want to go. But the turning point happened when I went to Australia. I migrated to Australia from India. I set up my own business as a restaurant. And then I joined Sheraton, ITT Sheraton in those days, in 1992, and opened the Sheraton Tower Southgate in Melbourne, in Australia, as executive chef. And I got an opportunity to go to China in 1996 to work in one of the largest hotels in China, was the Great Wall Sheraton in Beijing, which had 1,000 rooms and a huge property. The adjustment to move from a westernized country like Australia to China in the early 90s was quite a challenge. But I had to take that, and you had to take that jump, and you had to be prepared for being ready to take whatever comes your way and make the best of it. You know, there are challenges in life and there are challenges in careers, and everything is not perfect. There's always be challenges. But once I went into China, I started work my way through. The company was growing. Sheraton had only 5 hotels in China those days. And when I left China in 2019, it had 340 hotels. So from 5 hotels, it grew to 340. But the turning point was one day my boss came to me and said, hey, Subash, the food and beverage director has left, and you're a chef, you're a very good chef. Would you be able to sort of think outside the box and do something different? And I said, what is it that you want me to do different? He said, look, would you manage the F&B department, because we don't have an F&B director? But traditionally in those days, you had 2 lines, kitchen and service, and nobody crossed that line. So I was willing to cross the line. So during the days, I would be a chef, and in the evenings, I used to wear a jacket and a suit and be a manager. And I was one of the first chef and F&B managers in the company in those days, and they called me chef and B director. And I was willing to make that change in the mind shift of changing from thinking like a chef to think like a service person and think management, start doing budgets, start learning how to do forecasts, start doing other things beyond just cooking or teaching people how to cook. And that mind shift and being able to think outside the box and be ready for any challenges that happen and come your way was the biggest change that I sort of was able to experience in a company that gave you the ability to do it also. My bosses, of course, helped me along. The owners helped me along. So from that step, I became a chef and B manager, became an F&B director, and from an F&B director, my career sort of never looked back. I grew up to be executive assistant manager and hotel manager, and all the way up to a general manager today. But the message basically is that first thing is you need to have passion for whatever you do. You need to have a passion for whatever you do. That's the most important. And you must love what you do. It is not do what you like. You must love what you do. And hospitality is an industry where you need to feel that you're inviting people into your home, into your heart, into your place. And it needs to be genuine. It cannot be a put on. It cannot be a plastic
There has to be
smile.
a connection with them. You know, you have to understand
Absolutely.
their needs, not be
Absolutely.
even a friend.
Absolutely.
Instead of just a guest, a friend to them.
Exactly. And more than anything else is being able to understand what people want, whether you're working with your staff, what do they want? Whether it's working with your customers, what do they want? Whether it's working with the owners, what do the owners want? And being able to understand each group of people have got different wants and needs. And being able to make sure that you as an individual or as a manager or as a leader are able to make sure that you keep your own values and you keep the company values, yet deliver those wants and needs to those people. And the key message here is that, you know, going through all these positions, the one thing that I always had in my mind was being able to be the best at what I wanted to do and being able to be the best at where I wanted to go. And in my life, my goals changed. You know, I was a chef. I wanted to be the best chef. I wanted to be the best general manager in the group that I wanted that I did. I wanted to be the general manager of a luxury hotel, so I was the general manager of a luxury hotel. I wanted to be, make sure that we had the best sort of response from the guests on the type of food that we served, or the response from my staff satisfaction survey. We have staff satisfaction surveys, and while I was in China, I took my staff satisfaction survey up to 99%, which is
Wow.
how do people respond to your management style, and how they deal with you as a boss, and how you deal with them as a boss. So things like this, it's quite important, because it's a defining moment of your career.
So, Mr. Subash, from what you've shared with us, I know that back then, being in the kitchen is a very frenzied place, especially when you have buffets, when you have events going on. So, while managing a kitchen, did anything from the kitchen, any experience from the kitchen, did you bring it along with you when you're working as a GM? Is there anything that you utilize on your day-to-day running of the hotel that you've done the same in
Certainly,
the
I
kitchen?
mean, to be a successful chef, you're dealing firstly with perishable products. Food is perishable. You're dealing with perishable products. Secondly, you need to be extremely organized. In the kitchen, you need to be to be a successful chef. You need to be very creative. You need to be able to think outside the box. You need to be able to listen to your customers' needs. You can create the best food in the world, but if the guests don't want to eat it, you're going to be a failure. So, being a chef gives you the sort of guidelines on how to be a successful manager by being organized, by being understanding what you're dealing with the market. For example, in a hotel, room is a perishable commodity. If you don't sell the room today, it's gone tomorrow. It's similar to being in a kitchen. You're dealing with food, or you're dealing with any edible products. They are perishable items. And most importantly, customers' tastes and needs. A taste is a physical thing, which means it's on your tongue, whereas a customer's needs and wants may not be as to put it very mildly, it may not be something. It is basically to deal with the five senses, but it is something very similar to a person when he tastes something. Oh, that's good, or that's nice. It's being a general manager has got the similar sort of guidelines, but just in a different box.
That's very good advice. So, Mr. Subash, throughout your career of 3 decades, do you have any defining moment where, there's a scenario where it really pushes you, a special moment that makes you feel, yes, this is what I'm going to do for life. This is why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. Is there a very special moment within these 3 decades?
Definitely. I mean, I'm quite happy to say that I've created about 12 to 14 general managers in my career. They worked for me at some stage. A couple of vice presidents who are working for different organizations today. And my most defining moment has been being able to, when I was in Taj, I had a trainee and an apprentice chef who worked with me. He rose up to be one of the most famous chefs in the world today, and he passed away with COVID-19 in New York, a chef called Floyd Cardoz, who ran a very successful restaurant in New York called Tabla. And apart from that, I've had many students of mine, or many people who have worked under me as apprentices and trainees and managers and assistant managers, who have grown along the way and have become general managers in their own right, and have done extremely well as general managers. But being able to guide them and give them the sort of guidance on to stay the course, to have passion for what you do, and to develop that sense of hospitality. There is a sense of hospitality, and this is very important. Being a hotelier is different than being a hospitality person. A hospitality person is a person who understands the needs and wants of the clients, and needs and wants of the customer, or the guest, and being able to deliver them. And there is something that I hold very dearly, and we all believe in our five senses: the sense of touch, taste, smell, you know. And I believe there is a very, very strong sixth sense. And I believe that the sixth sense is emotion. And when you put these five senses together with the sense of emotion, it makes whatever you're doing very, very, very strong. So if you put your emotion and passion into what you do, whatever you do, you'll be very successful.
Very good. That's very, very good answer. I believe a lot of our audience can learn from what you've just told us. So, okay, going back to you, when you did mention you've moved over to Australia once.
Yes.
So while you're in Australia, you were at the Palazzo Versace and then Spices Peak Lodge. Am I right?
Yes.
So, both of these places are very unique. They attract a very affluent clientele, but very different at the same time. So, what made you move from Versace over to Spices? Was it a better fit for you, or are there any other reasons?
It's a very interesting question. You know, I went to Palazzo Versace because the owners were Chinese and I had extensive experience in China. And I had a background in hospitality and being in luxury hotels at the St. Regis and places like this, and with a food and beverage background. The owners wanted me to go to Palazzo Versace and bridge the gap between them, being Chinese owners, and Palazzo Versace from Milan, which was the Versace family in Milan. The hotel was built in year 2000. It was an older property, a luxury, a palace style hotel, beautiful hotel, and it was undergoing a shift at that time. The owners had taken it over, and I had to sort of go in there and basically understand the needs of both these people. That is the Versace family and the owners, and of course the clients who were expecting nothing but the best. And the same rules I applied over there was, you know, understanding the client, understanding the market, delivering on the promise, and making sure they got a good team first together and made them understand, give them clear guidelines of where we wanted to go and where we want to position ourselves. And we did, we did a lot of things at Palazzo Versace. We did a lot of memorable things there. And I can share with you one that we do. It's Christmas time now, and we traditionally have a Christmas tree, which is usually a disposal Christmas tree. What we did at Versace was that we created a Christmas tree out of 1,000 teddy bears. And on
Wow.
every teddy bear, we put a Versace bow tie on it. And we sold these teddy bears. So you could buy a teddy bear and we would put your name on the teddy bear. And the money that we got from the proceeds of the teddy bear, we donated to displaced families in Australia. So we collected a lot of money from here. So after Christmas was over, the tree came down. But the money that we had collected from the sale of these teddy bears was donated to, orphan children and people who were not didn't have the good fortune of having a fantastic Christmas. So being in a luxury property, we could still do the luxury things, yet contribute to the world and contribute to the charity and contribute to the people who didn't have enough. So being able to be in that position, in that role, I could still give something back to the community. So from that, I moved, Versace was a beautiful sort of example of the hotel had ordered 2 Rolls-Royce cars from London, and they flew me to London to take personal delivery of the cars, of the vehicles and things like that. So it was the epitome of luxury, really was. After 2 years, I found myself in a position where this is not me. I wanted to be something like a hands-on person. I started off hands-on. So I went into this property called Spices Peak Lodge. It's a lodge up in the mountains of the back of Queensland on a 100,000-acre Black Angus farm. And it only had 15 rooms. And I was the general manager of that property where I did everything. I parked cars, washed cars, made coffee in the morning, cooked breakfast for the staff, for the guests, welcomed them, cleaned rooms, chopped wood, chased kangaroos, chased snakes. You name it, I did it.
The experience
Because
is
I
very
wanted to
different
be
from
back in touch
Versace.
I wanted to be back in reality because living the life in Versace, the luxury and things like that, it sort of took me away from what I really was, and that was a working man who grew up from, cooking and working with my hands in the kitchen to. I wanted to go back and experience that lifestyle of being in a secluded location, which was miles from everywhere. I still remember one day we ran out of eggs in the morning, and we had a wedding party of 20 people, and I had to go 50 kilometers to buy eggs because there's no town close by.
Oh,
At 5 o'clock in the morning, go down, in a four-wheel drive to go and buy eggs. So, it was different. It was sort of really raw, and it was like going back to my roots of proving to myself whether I could still do it at that age. And I enjoyed it.
that's nice to hear. Which is why I asked the question. I was wondering, it is a vast difference, being from these two different establishments. Yes, it's a luxurious establishment, but the jobs that you've been doing, both as general managers, but one you mentioned that it's a little bit more hands-off, and one where you're really
Yes.
hands-on. You're going down to the farms, you're greeting guests, you're cooking, you're going out getting eggs. So that is very, very interesting. And now there's something new. You're now currently an educator. What made you venture into this? What made you feel that you wanted to be an educator and imparting your knowledge to the next generation?
Well, it's a very sort of, it's been something that's been in my heart for many, many, many years. I had a sample of this while I was at Versace. We used to run a hotel school at Versace. It was called the Palazzo Versace Hotel School, where we had a group of people would come, pay a lot of money to be part of the Palazzo Versace Hotel School, where we gave them a degree. We combined with a university in Australia, and we gave them a diploma at the end of that 2-year period, where they would do practical experience in the hotel, and they would do their scholastic experience attached to the university. And I was the headmaster or the principal of that academy at Palazzo Versace. And we turned out quite a few successful hoteliers at that school. So it sort of gave me an insight to what I was sort of always wanted to do. Plus, I had gone to China at a very sort of formative period in China's history of sort of hospitality, with China was coming from the 90s into the year 2000 and beyond. And I had the opportunity to work in many hotels where I was taking people from humble beginnings, from people who are literally, from villages and farms, and turning them to chefs and turning them into hoteliers, and some of them very successful. And the ability to look at the effect it has had on their lives and their family's life was profound for me. We've given people an education, we've given people them a career to do something in the hospitality industry. So that satisfaction of being able to give somebody something for their future, it's a prize. It really is a prize. I think there is an oft-quoted saying, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
That's true,
So
yes.
I think it is very similar to that. And I was also lucky, extremely lucky, to have worked with the top hotels in the world and worked with the top chefs in the world and the top educators in the world. And in today's world, you cannot travel, you cannot move, you're stuck in locations. COVID has brought a different sense to hospitality industry. So when you have that situation, people like us with this experience and with this knowledge and with this background, I think it's a crime if we don't utilize it and give back to the hospitality what I have gained from hospitality.
So, like now during the pandemic, what people can do instead of, like you mentioned, there's no travel, there's no room nights to be sold. So what they can do is to upskill themselves or even reskill themselves.
Absolutely.
So education is
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely. I think, one of the biggest issues in undergoing any sort of challenge or undergoing something that can be very so life changing. I can give you an example. I was working in a property in one of the locations where I was faced with a split second decision I had to make. I was called by my security manager saying that we have a problem. Somebody is at the security entrance. Please come and see me. So I go there, and there's a man standing there with a bomb strapped to his chest with a trigger in his hand.
Oh,
And he opens his jacket and says, here it is. I've got a bomb strapped to my chest. What are you going to do? In that split second, you have to make a decision as to what you want to do moving ahead, right? So at that time, I realized that, life can be here and gone at any stage in life. So when you're in that role and when you're in a position, I think it is upon us to sort of give back to people while you can still have the opportunity to do so. And you are faced with challenges in life, and how you look at life after that makes a big difference.
okay. So, Mr. Subash, last but not least, do you have any advice that you would like to share with our audience, those who are just starting out in the hospitality industry, especially now during these complicated times?
Certainly. I mean, for me, the best piece of advice I can give is passion, um, attitude, and being able to stay the distance, which means you got to be very passionate with what you do. I still remember that many years ago, I had a cleaning lady who used to come to my home back in Australia, and she would jokingly say to my family, even if Subash boils water, it'll taste good. It's because you do it with passion, you do it with love, you do it with something. And that's why many people say that, your mother's food or your grandmother's food is very good. It's because it's done with love, it's done with passion, it's done with something that is an intangible thing that is put into. And guests feel that, people feel that, they can notice it. And you can notice it. If you do something with passion, you can see that you will get what you want. But not only passion is important, you need to have the attitude of being positive. There are always two sides to the story, and there's always two sides to everything. And in life, if you start looking at the downside and start looking at the bad side, it has snowballs and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And one day you will end up with such a big sort of avalanche that you will not be able to cope with it. So if you start with a positive attitude, and positive attitude also snowballs and becomes bigger and it spreads among people. And in a situation like now, when we are facing such a unsurmountable challenge throughout the world, we need to have some kind of ability to keep the candle burning and keep people motivated and keep things happening. And being able to go the distance, being able to make sure that you can hang on and go the distance and make sure that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You need to keep going. In our today's world, many people have got instant gratification from different things, and it is the society today. It is no change. I mean, even me, I mean, I keep looking at my mobile phone every few minutes, right? So
Yes.
it is what it is today. But being able to keep and social, being able to go the distance and being stay on the path of making sure you have a positive attitude and making sure you have passion for what you do, it becomes infectious.
Excellent
Hospitality is
advice,
not a
Mr.
career.
Subash. Excellent advice.
Hospitality is
I
not a
do agree
career.
with your vision for this. Yes. So, okay, it seems like we've run out of time. I myself, I would like personally thank you, Mr. Subash, for spending your time with us and also to share all your experiences and good advice. So I hope our audience do take note of what you've spoken for the last 20 minutes on all your experiences, how you travel around the world, how you've handled all the issues, and also your scary experience when facing something that is between life and death. Okay. Thank you very
You're
much,
most
Mr. Subash.
welcome, and you're most welcome. And the Courtyard Penang is a new hotel. We've just opened in Penang, so I'm available at any time. If anybody wants to reach out to me for anything, I'm available at any time.